welcome to Metal Riffs TV. I'm here with Shades Casanova. I'm here with Danny Alexander and Robless Strange. How you guys doing?
Good, and you?
Good. Greetings. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, we're going to talk about your album you guys have coming up and the songs on it. And I've taken a listen to it. I'm pretty impressed with what I'm hearing from your sound. It's a very it kind of is true to the gothic metal style. It's got a little bit going on. You can hear some different flavors of artists in it, and those types of things. So there was a single that was released, which was the what was that? Grave of Roses. You want to talk
Yeah.
about that a little bit, and then we'll jump into the album itself.
Sure, yeah. That's probably one of the heaviest tunes in the album. So the whole vision behind this album, it's supposed to be a two-part album. Grave of Roses is part of actually part two, which is not even out yet. And the way we came about this was, okay, we're about to present probably our heaviest, most nuanced material yet. Let's kind of throw everyone on a loop and just give them this heavy track and just kind of as a shocker type of thing for those that have known us over the years. And to kind of, I guess the purpose of that track, it's more of like a staple of what you're about to experience the rest of the album.
Yeah, because we have this, this very theatrical, very goth look that, if you see a picture of us, that's the first thing you see. So when we're trying to pick that song for the single, we're like, let's just go with the heaviest stuff first. Like, yes, obviously we have the look and it's all part of the concept, but this is in fact a metal record. And I think that's kind of where we went with that. You got anything?
Coming out is going to be Magnificence of Agony 1, Part 1, and that you've actually were releasing right now, and that's on the Part 2. But it's a great lead into the story that we're talking about here, and one of them is the first song on the track, that you have for the album, the Ode to Anguish, I think it is.
Yeah.
Am I correct? Um, what was that all about? Was that just kind of like to build it up to the rest of the album, or and who was responsible for writing that and putting that together, and how did you guys put that stuff into action?
That track was more of we wanted to have an instrumental introduction to the album, and what better way to convey the vision of the album than uh, setting up an ode to anguish as this feeling, right? Like let's make that feeling into, let's express that feeling in some type of sonic way, right? So that's the idea behind it. We didn't want any vocals on it. As far as how, we wanted to make sure that the music speaks for that feeling of anguish. As far as how it all started, I think he was I created like the basic structure, like the chord progression and so forth, but yeah, I think the song itself took on a completely more in-depth turn once Daniel added his keyboard parts to it. And I guess you can say more about that.
Yeah, the approach that I wanted to, like the direction I wanted to take it when I heard initially the riffs that he had shown me for the song, I immediately thought an orchestral um, touch would be good for it, So I just started kind of throwing in different strings and classical piano. I want to sound very organic. Um, this album in general is very organic sounding versus some of the other things that we've written that has like some more electronic elements. But I tried not to use any, crazy synthesizer sounds for it. It's just like strings, cellos, grand piano, things like
Yeah,
that.
it's interesting when we're actually in the studio and you look at the tracks, you have like drums, bass, guitar, and then you have like this 10 tracks of all these different symphonic instruments that he overlays and it just kind of builds like the wall of sound and the texture of the tracks.
The layer, I think, is really interesting the way some of that is done, and that's kind of why I started with that piece too. Not only that it's the first one on the album, but also it kind of leads into the rest. And I want to kind of skip the two and go straight to three, which is Madam Red, because it's probably the longest song that you have on there right now, but it's the most dynamic, I want to say, as far as what you guys did with that. It was a really fun song to listen to see what was going to happen, where you guys were going with that. So you want to talk about that process as well.
Yeah, that song is actually it's just quite an adventure. I mean, it just doesn't really have any repeating parts, right? So it just kind of just keeps going and taking you to just new areas sonically. And, Yeah, that one's really a pleasure to listen to and to play. It's quite fun. But go ahead, Shades, you want to talk about it?
Yeah, there's an aspect of a journey of sorts, right? It's a story that we're conveying with that particular piece, and as any story has its ups and downs, its beautiful moments, its moments of just agony. So it has everything. We tend to joke around from time to time whenever we go through this piece that some areas you feel like visually like it takes you to this place of like almost like you're in a castle of sorts, then you're in a forest, then you're somewhere else. It's a very visual piece, in my opinion.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. And it's honestly probably the oldest song on the record too. We wrote that years
That
ago
is
originally.
true. Yeah, it was a song that Rob and I like wrote like I want to say like eight,
Like yeah,
7 years
a really
ago.
long time ago.
It was just in the back burner for quite a while, and then when the vision for this album came to be constructed, I immediately went into that archive of sorts. Like, all right, we need to have this song in there.
Yeah,
It's
especially
unique.
now that we had Danny in the band that could actually fulfill type of the idea that we had with all these like like give it like the full orchestra treatment that it deserves.
So you guys had time to kind of mull over it a little bit and kind of rethink and repurpose and make it fit to what your vision was, which is really cool. So let's jump back to Nocturnal Eyes. What's that song all about and how that come to be?
That is I would like to think of that song as the one romantic song in the album, right? Because love is part of agony in its own way. And so, yeah, it's a romantic piece, vaguely influenced or inspired by the concept of reincarnation and just rekindling a spark that you come to kind of recognize from a different timeline, perhaps, or a different time period. It's just this spark that you resonate with once you meet a specific person of this caliber, I guess. And but as any good love story goes, there's tragedy involved, and so that's how that came out to be. It's probably one of the newer tracks that
Yeah.
we kind of, but that one was I kind of presented the main structure of it, and this guys added their beauty to it.
Yeah, and I think that's that's kind of like the thing that as different as they are, ties all the different songs in the album together and back to the title, which is that it's just all different aspects of pain of agony. So, from love, from just spirituality, from just like even just the music, like an ode to anguish, where just no sound, it's just simply the actual feeling of it. It's like that's kind of the concept that ties the entire album together.
Yeah, and musically, it also has a bit of a more of a modern twist compared to the rest of the songs.
Yeah,
You
Nocturnal
know,
Eyes for sure.
yeah, and which is fitting for the theme, considering it's kind of about love transcending time. We had this idea for a music video actually that maybe in the future
We might realize,
we
yeah.
might realize, but it will involve that theme about love
Love through time.
through time, basically. Yeah, we don't want to unveil too much about it,
Yeah, yeah.
but we do want to revisit that.
Sounds like it could be a fun video to actually make. The other track on there is the Crimson Blasphemy. Um, what's that one all about?
That's the magnum opus.
That one, yeah, that one actually started. We were at rehearsal one day, and we always love to improvise and just do wacky stuff together before practice. And I just started playing the beginning riff of that, and then Hermes, our drummer, he started playing along to it, and then Shades, he suddenly like turned around. He's like, "Wait, what is that? What are you guys playing?" He's like, "No, we're just improvising right now," and he loved it. So he kind of wanted to capture that and start. We didn't start practicing for a while. Like we started just crafting that song right there for at least the first, I don't know, 30 minutes, 1 hour of our schedule, because it was actually a practice room. It was at the Shack.
Yeah, the Shack.
So there we're paying by the hour. So we instead of using it for practice, we were just using it to craft that song pretty much. And it ended up with this crazy epic that
Yeah,
is also another, it's got a little bit like Madame Red, where it's like it's a bit of a crazy ride.
yeah, no, like that was called the Castlevania track.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, we Let's say that
Well,
again, sorry. You
that
kind
kind of
of
reminds me of what you just said, the Castlevania track. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then we have one more song on there, the Liminal Ache. What's that?
Well, I kind of wanted to have this transitional track that will connect part one and part two of the album. And to kind of the idea behind the track is to give you a summary of what you just experienced for the second half, and then the second half hints on where part two will take you. So that's why that song kind of feels like two different pieces in one, in a way, sonically. It ties into the very first track of part two when that album comes out, and what's so beautiful about that piece in itself was the title itself, liminal, as in a place that has no correlation of any kind. You're kind of in this in between, right? That's kind of the notion behind that track. But all the second thing that I think is quite beautiful about that piece is that I literally just told Daniel like, "Hey, this is what I'm trying to convey. I didn't write any pieces to it. I didn't write anything about it." And he was just like, "Okay, I got you." And then he just did his magic, and I did kind of like hint that, okay, can we include a little bit of the
Yeah.
riff from Crimson, and then the riff from the other song, and
Right.
combine them?
Yeah,
And
he took more like a producer role for that particular song. It was just me and him in the studio on one of the last days of like of recording. And yeah, we had talked about it before that we wanted to create a track like this, but we never actually got together to write it. So the day of in the studio was like, well, let's do something right now. Why not? Let's just make it happen. So that's kind of like what I started crafting that, and then with his guidance back and forth, okay, what about this? Does this work? You know, does that work? And we just put it together right there, and did it with that has yeah with no click track at all. That's just purely that's old school
yeah,
right there. And then it finishes off with that piano with the beautiful with the waves in the background, and that's gonna bring you in straight into the next album whenever that
yeah.
comes
That
out.
that one always hurts to listen to because I know what's the track that's gonna come next in the second part, and I'm always like, it's such a tease. But yeah, it is something that is like ideally when we release the second part, it's something that if you go back, listen to part one from the beginning, and you actually listen to that transition from Liminal Lake into the first song of the second part, it ties it all together. It ties the entire. That's why it's Magnificence of Agony part one and two like one single concept.
yeah, and one thing I want to add is that after part two comes out, we were discussing about releasing part one and part two together as a vinyl. So we'll probably do that for those that want to experience the entire concept in one run.
So an A and a B side, basically.
Right.
Right?
Essentially.
Yeah. Yeah. And vinyl is a great thing that people have started to discover again. It's just that raw sound that you can get that you just can't get from digital, like straight digital on a CD or
Yeah.
the downloads that everybody's doing on Spotify now that honestly is not doing any artist any favors, financially for their efforts.
Yeah.
But you guys brought up the whole concept of the studio. So what's that process look like? I mean, when you come in, who starts to lay their first track down, or is it recorded all together and separate? Everybody got their separate parts, or every band's a little different. So I was just curious how this was actually recorded.
So, I mean, so typically, I don't know how maybe other bands do it, but the way we did it was we we had the drummer come in and we actually did a scratch track first where we all kind of played at the same time. Um, just to kind of get the tempo down and the
The
general,
feel,
yeah.
yeah.
And then we mute the drums that were done in that scratch track, and we just have the instruments playing in time. Granted, they're not played perfectly, right? Because we're just doing the song full on. Then the drummer will start doing his tracks, like to the scratch tracks,
Yeah, we did
and
do
then
all live drumming on
right,
this
all
album.
live drumming, yeah, yeah. And then we would mute this or remove the scratch tracks, and then we're playing on top of the real drums, instrument by instrument. Generally, I think it was rhythm guitar first.
I think it was
Or
drums, bass.
oh,
Drums, yeah,
bass.
drum
Okay,
bass, yeah.
drums, bass. Yeah, then guitar. I typically like to go last as the keyboard player because I feel like I like to just see where things go with everything else, and then I will fill in what needs to fill in, because it's different just kind of creating it and playing it in a room versus hearing it now track by track. Suddenly I'll be like, okay, now I feel like these keys that I was playing, maybe it's stepping too much over one of the lead guitars. So you know what? Instead of doing that, I'm going to lay down, pads or strings or something.
Yeah, that step by step process of just going instrument by instrument, I feel like it adds like that extra layer to the creative process of like, you had the song that you wrote, but then as you hear it recorded, and as you go part by part, like suddenly things start changing. Like I don't think there's been a single time we've ever gone into the studio that like the concept we came in with originally is what we left with because we always change our minds. We always like suddenly realize like, oh God, we don't like how this sounds. We're like, oh, we could totally use this here. So
It definitely evolves.
taking that slower approach of just making everything layer by layer allows us to do that like without having to change out and everything if we want to do like a minute sort of adjustment.
It's quite a ride because let's say that the drums and the bass start with that's how we do it, right? And then when it came for my guitar parts, I remember, oh, that's a new thing that Rob came with it. I'm gonna adjust to that piece. So it becomes this puzzle that we're all like kind of
Yeah.
creating together with pieces that the previous member did before. So it's a pretty lovely experience.
Yeah, that's nice.
And then sometimes we discover certain things that we've played that we're like, wait, you play it
Yeah,
like
like I had no
that?
clue.
You
Yeah.
play that? No, what the heck? And then we sometimes, it'll start a little bit of a discussion, a little bit of a battle because
Oh
we're
yeah.
like, it's always it's a tug of war sometimes, There's always some egos involved,
Yeah.
with musicians. But ultimately, I think the push and pull is really good for the music because it helps craft it and make it the best it can be. I would not want
100%.
I would not want to have musicians that are just kind of like yes men. I want this push and pull is what sculpts the beauty.
Yeah,
Great.
for sure.
Put into the process, or otherwise it just becomes one person's vision and not the whole entire band's vision. And then when you're playing it, you feel like, well, I'm just playing this dude's stuff that he wanted. And I don't get to actually be myself, and hear my influences of where I came from with my music and all that stuff. Yeah, I did a little bit of recording way back a few years ago with a band I was trying to help launch, and we kind of laid it down the same way. The guitar player, we just threw a blanket over the amp and recorded his track. He did it on his own, and we put it through the headphones for the drummer, and he laid his tracks down, and everybody layered after that. So it's a very similar process, but
Yeah.
again, a lot of punch-ins, a lot of like, well, yeah, we got to I messed that up. I got to fix that. I hit that note just a little bit too late. Those types of things, and that all is great in the studio, but live, you don't get that opportunity. So
Yeah.
live, you got some live shows coming up anywhere anybody can see in the near future, or
We're currently waiting confirmation for a show at this venue that just reopened. That's kind of big for the South Florida scene. The venue's called Las Rosas. We're waiting confirmation for a show in November, but other than that, we have a January 31st show set up already.
Yeah, it's gonna be a more theatrical one for sure because we're doing like we're doing our show alongside these like circus performers like aerialists like stuff like that all like to the music because it's gonna be a much more theatrical show I guess than our usual, which is nice honestly. If I could have every show like that, I
Yeah,
would.
yeah. Well, we're most likely going to film that professionally and share it on our socials for those that are out of state. Yeah.
And for those that want updates on that, definitely follow Shadow Reborn on
Yeah,
Instagram.
it's on also. I think we're the same on all social media. Just Shadow
Yeah,
Reborn or
just Shadow.
Shadow_Reborn.
Yep.
you guys want to share about your album coming out? Anything that we didn't cover?
Um, not really. I think we covered a great extensive range of things that pertain to the album that are quite meaningful. If anything, just highly encourage those that listen to it to listen to the tracks in
In
order
order, yeah.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
let it take you and just just be open to experience a lot of beauty within pain. That's my
Yeah.
take on it.
No, with the way the music industry is now, it's all about like just short little singles and stuff like that. And as like as maybe as traditional of a mindset as it is, yeah, we definitely listen to the whole thing, go track by track, take your time with it, like just turn out the lights, just put the headphones in. It's frankly the best way to listen to music.
I totally agree. I mean, I have a band that's my favorite, and they're kind of like on the theatrical. They're a UK band. I won't say their name, but if I did COF, you probably would figure it out.
Oh yeah.
That's their initials. But that's kind of what I'm way I am with it. You just got to kind of just marinate over it, if you will. It's like you got to really kind of get into it, and it actually speaks to you then. And I think your album will do that to a lot of people because, well, everybody experiences the same things in life. Everybody has, ups and downs and those types of things. So when they listen to a certain song, it's going to hit that chord somewhere, and somebody's going to be like, "Wow, that makes sense to me," and that's really driving me. And I think that's a great thing. I want to appreciate you guys taking the time to be here tonight with Metal Riffs TV.
Of
This has
course.
been a huge honor talking to you guys,
Likewise.
and thank you, Danny, uh, Alexander, and
Yeah.
Shade Casanova, and Robless Strange for being here
Hell yeah.
tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank you
very
for
much.
having
Thank
us.
you so
Thank
much,
you.
man.